We haven't talked about this subject of trading journals in a while, but I did want to take the time tonight to kind of revisit it. We're going to look at what's in a trading journal, why we should use them, and then a couple of examples of trading journals, which I'll drop links to in the chat, and these will also appear in the Foundations course. I actually was going through some of our old videos, looking up some of the old lessons, and I found the old lesson I did the first time of trading journals, and so I kind of just wanted to take the time to just get a newer take on it. So without further ado, let's dive right on into this lesson and see what we got for tonight. So this is a quote from Richard Dennis in Market Wizards, and he says, "The trading experience is so intense that there is a natural tendency to want to avoid thinking about it, especially once the day is over." If you've ever had that at the end of the day, if you've been trading, you've been upside down, or you had a rough day, or even if you're up really far with your percentages, it can be emotionally exhausting. And he says, "I'm that way when things are working. But when they're not, it spurs me to want to think about what I'm doing and how I might do better." So he's saying when he's winning, he just wants to avoid looking at stuff. He can go relax. But when he's losing, he wants to figure out what he's doing wrong. When things go bad, traders shouldn't stick their heads in the sand and just hope it gets better. Everybody who has been trading long enough has had an experience where a trade went upside down. They didn't have their risk parameters well defined, and they went into a position of being upside down so much that they come to this conclusion that they can't afford the loss, so they're just going to hold it. You can't lose if you don't sell, just hold it. And if you bought in 2018 at the all-time high, that strategy hasn't served you very well for years. So we have to get away from this idea that you can't lose if you don't sell, because it's a false premise. You do lose. You lose the opportunity cost of being able to trade that capital that gets stuck upside down. We call it dead crypto. You don't want to get stuck in a position where capital is diminished and upside down in a trade and it can't be put to use when a new opportunity presents itself. That is why position sizing is so important. But it's also why we have to get all of the important details into our trading journals so that we can review them and figure out what we're doing wrong and what we can do better. This is how we start to develop more consistency in our trading. This is how we take full responsibility for our trading. If we can't figure out what we're doing wrong, we can't get better. The definition of insanity is repeating the same behavior over and over and expecting a different result. If you're going into trades the same way every time without analyzing how to improve along the way, and you're expecting different results, the only way your results will differ is by the randomness of the market. You won't be able to take control for those results. So what should go into a trading journal? This is a very personal thing. It's as much information as you believe is necessary to adequately analyze your trading behaviors in order to identify your mistakes that you want to eliminate so that you can increase consistency. Every journal should have basic trade details. So we need to know our entry. We need to know what our position size is. We need to know what our targets, our exits are, 1, 3, however many you see on your chart that you're going to try and go after, what your stop loss is, and the date that you're entering your trade. You may also have a time frame where you choose to get out of trades that aren't working. Some people like to have a solid rule of after 10 days, if I'm not up X percent, I get out of the trade and I look for something else. That's a personal thing you have to develop for yourself. You also want to include somewhere in your journal, whether it's near the page you're doing your trade on or whether it's in some spot on the ledger for notes, fundamental details about your trade. So what's the news that's coming up about that trade? Is it a potential upcoming fundamental event? Is there a mainnet launch? Are they changing an algorithm? A soft or a hard fork coming up? We have a coin calendar on the website. So if you're a member and you have access to the TCL calendars, you can cross-reference those for your journaling. I also think you should be going out and looking for stuff on your own in case anything is missed on our calendar. And if it is, please click that button and let us know. We want to get it in there for everybody. Crypto-wide events. So is there a halvening coming up on Bitcoin? Is there consensus coming up? Partnerships? Any of those things that could take over and affect the trade. Steve Fry says, BitTube news, by the way, upcoming fork to same algo as Grin. I think that's Mimblewimble for Grin. So that's interesting. That would be like a privacy fork of Bitcoin. I'll have to look into that a little bit. Bitcoin Dark didn't do so well, but I know Mimblewimble has generated a lot of chatter amongst the algo people. Then you should also have in your journal your justifications for your trade. This is a personal justification. Why did you take the trade? But you can also have objective facts. What's the risk to reward for your trade? You can have some more subjective general thoughts that you have. And that's important to note, because it's just as important to know if you have biased thoughts towards the positive or the negative side. Do you really hate XRP at a fundamental level, but you're just trading it because you see an opportunity for a quick gain, for a quick flip? Put that in there, because you might find that, it doesn't work out. Maybe you should have stuck with your idea of staying away from that. Or it may work and you can figure out that you can make money even if you don't like a project. But if you don't put that note, you'll have no way to analyze. Is it purely a technical trade? So are you trading a setup that's just on the chart? Or do you have another reason for it? And if it is technical, put the pattern down. I noticed this triangle broke and hooked back to the trend line. And in an example we'll see in a little bit, you can even take a picture of the chart and put it in your journal. I am a very visual person. I like to see the data visually. So I always like to take one of those TradingView screenshots and pop it into my chart. And then you want to make sure you put in any caution notes. Is there something going on that might be a negative event in the market at large? Is there a global crisis that you need to be always aware of right now when you're trading, that at any point in this trade, we could see blood show up if a significant development occurs on the world stage? Or are you experiencing bias? We just talked about that. Be honest. If you just know, like, I really like this coin and I'm guilty of just wanting to buy it for no reason, just because I like it so much, I think it's going to long-term be fantastic and anywhere around this area is great, write that down. Are you trading against the trend? This is a big one for me. If you're trading right now to the long side, even though we're in a downtrend move in the big picture, are you trading against the trend? And if so, you had better account for that in your trade, in your plan. You better be careful about your risk management, and you better have a quick escape planned. And then why? It's important to understand why a trading journal is so central to your development success as a trading business owner. You want to analyze any mistakes that you made. Remember, mistakes are not losing a trade. That's not a mistake. We lose trades all the time where we don't make a single mistake from open to close. The market just said that our idea was wrong. But if you deviate from your plan because you FOMO in too early, or you deviate because you sell in fear before it gets to your stop loss, even though you planned 2%, if you deviated from your plan, that's a mistake, and you need to note it. Because if you don't stick to your plan, you can't tell if it worked or not. If you're the reason the plan didn't work, you have no accurate way to measure your plan. Mark says there's always that coin that, was your first time, and that you're kind of partial to. That one coin that you got in and it ran 200, 300, 500% in 2017, and you got out to Bitcoin and captured another 40%, and you made so much money on it. It always holds a spot near and dear to your heart. XLM for me back in November 2017. Steve Fry says for Ethereum. We've all had that experience if we've been around long enough. If that's you, you should be noting it in your journal. Did you watch the charts too much? Did you experience anxiety or frustration? You also need to track your wins and your losses, not just the wins versus the losses, but the amount of wins and losses. You should be comparing your gain percentages versus your losing percentages. And if any of your losses are over 2%, you made a mistake. Or you did not put a good stop down that gave you enough liquidity to make your exit and the market hopped you. And if it skips over your order in low liquidity during fast move, you're going to have to start to practice how to strategize against that. That's why scaling out is so beneficial when we get volatile. And then you want to track effects of changes in your plan. So once you get to the level where, okay, I've made a couple of trades, I've written all the parameters down, the fundamental events, the emotional attachments I might have, you want to look at, okay, these 3 trades didn't work. Here's why I think I'm going to change this. Let's see how it does next. That's the top level of journaling. That's the benefit that you get out of it. You can measure how small changes in your exit strategy, maybe instead of pushing all the way to the second target with 75% of your position, you decide to take out half off the first target and see how much you can press of the second half of your position. And maybe instead of an average gain of a smaller percentage, because it doesn't quite make it up high enough every time for you, you can push that average gain amount up by getting more out sooner. All kinds of ways that you can adjust your results by making small tweaks to your exit plan. Van Tharp goes into that a lot. And finally, think about ideas that are important to you. Your journal should be a personal, intimate experience of discovering this window into what makes you tick in the trading world. Why did you do that? Anyone should look at your journal. Maybe I wouldn't understand necessarily the language you use in it, but I should be able to see your basic trade parameters, look at the TA reasons why you're going to take this trade, look at the fundamental reasons and go, okay, I see where your thinking's at. And you have a general justification for why you took that trade. And then at the very end, when it's closed, you should have notes about what happened in it and what you intend to do about it moving forward to improve your results. What's important to you when it comes to your trading decisions? Every single thing that's important is something you should be documenting in your journal. If you have an indicator that's really important to you, and TCL doesn't necessarily talk about it a lot, if it's important to you, you should be journaling about it. Besides those basic trade elements, what other factors do you think about in a trade? Is length of time a factor for you? Is it limitations of functionality? Is it your ability to react to market conditions or exchange throughout the day? So do you have to work? Are you, an essential employee right now at a job where you're working more hours than usual and you really just don't have time to watch the market? That should be notated in your journal. I'm doing this in my trade because I can't sit at the computer due to my job. It doesn't have to be a long word. It could just be, too many hours at work, quick method of trade or something. But you want to make it personal and memorable. You will be more successful if you have fun with your journal and you make it something that you can remember. You'll be able to just go back to it and interact with it, and it'll really become a living part of your training and your trading. Mark says, post your charting ideas on Discord to reflect and save on file. Absolutely. Drop your chart in Discord. If somebody gives you a really good note on your chart, drop it in your journal and look at it later. Duffy says, no one's working right now. I like Discord. There's a few. We got a few doctors and nurses out there that are still working hard, and a lot of grocery workers and stuff. My friend is a ranger right now. He's considered essential. You're working, Duff. So, it just comes down to what your availability is. If you can't sit at the chart and watch it all day, trading a counter trend is going to be real difficult. Can be done, but you have to tighten your parameters down. So when it comes to your journal, it's all about your improvement. Your goal is to make things better. It's not personal, it's business. Your job as a business owner of your trading business, when it comes to your journal, is simply to record and observe what happens. Do not make a judgment. You should not have a note in your journal that says, this was good or this was bad, because your note should say, I did this and this happened. I did this and this happened. You might have a note that says something like result, gain of extra this percent, or loss, gain of this percent. Now, whether you think it's good or bad is going to be a judgment call based on your profitability. We all know that. That's not important really to record. You know, if you made more money, it was a good thing. But that doesn't help you improve to know that it was a good thing. What helps you improve is knowing what steps you took in the trade to make that money. Duffy, your journal should never say, I'm sorry I took someone else's money. No, if you're feeling sorry you took someone else's money, you've got some work to do. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot to make sure that you're not taking too much money from somebody else who made the mistake of putting their money in the market for you to take. If it was put there for you to take, you shouldn't have a problem feeling bad about taking it. It is not your fault that someone else was irresponsible, took a bad position, didn't have a plan, and got out in the wrong place. The market set up the conditions for your opportunity. Yes, it comes from someone, but it's coming from someone who isn't preparing like you, who didn't get in the right spot of you, didn't do the work as hard as you. That's what your edge is. That's how you develop more consistent profitability. So let's take a look at our first example. I'm going to drop the sharing link in here. This will be in the recording. It'll be in the training. It'll be in here for everybody in the room. You're going to have to copy and paste because they took out the linking ability to click. But this will get you to this document, and you can download a copy if you like by going to File, Download in Excel, or make a copy if you're logged into your Gmail when you access it. Now, this journal is set up in such a way that the front page here is your ledger. And you can see this down here at the bottom, Journal Ledger. This is supposed to be for you to enter every single one of your trades, one after the other, in the order that you enter them. The close date is important, the opening date is important, and they're going to go in order by the date you open them from top to bottom. I see a few of you getting in there now to take a look. Wonderful. So I left a little example grade out here. This was from a long time ago, so the prices are, oddly enough, not that much higher than we're at now. But you want to make note of what the trading pair is, what date you opened it, what exchange you opened it on. You're going to have to put your stop loss in and your entry in. And this particular sheet, you can see, has the formula here so that once you put your stop loss in your entry, for example, if I change 9,200, it's going to change the drawdown percent. It's calculating it for you. So that's a little bit of a convenience there. Duffy says, you'll still kill me. You're not a spreadsheet guy. Please do not think because I'm showing you this is the end all be all. You must use these journal examples. These are just two ways that some people do it. If you like spreadsheets, it's convenient because you can use that to do calculations at the end of the year. Down here, you can have totals that take the sums of everything. I took out this first one. That's why this amount is populated, because if you want to leave the example in and keep adding to it, this total will only include whatever you put in gains underneath it. And if you put negatives, it's going to take that amount out. So as you're keeping track of what your gains are, it's going to keep a running total at the bottom. This is real useful information for you to use as you're going through your trades. Now, this ledger on the page 1 of this example is just one part of this journal. You've got these tabs down at the bottom. Okay, and I gave you an example of a Bitcoin trade here. It's a little sloppy. You could clean it up and make it pretty, but it's got important things in it. It's got the date of an important event from back in 2019 when backed clients could start warehouse deposits. It's got the halving date on there. Look, we thought it was going to be May 20th. It's still not that far off. We justified this trade with the triangle continuation pattern, and in fact, I took a picture. This was what we were looking at back then. And in fact, we came up a little bit. I don't think we made it necessarily a break, hook, and go situation. I think this was just continued down this trend after a while. But this would be an example of if they did this, this would be my justification for entering the trade at 9,300. And you can see that was where I had my X on the chart. So my plan for this trade was to enter on 9,300 with my stop loss at 87. So somewhere down here, well below, to give it room in case they did a fake and go. And my target was 13.5, so somewhere up in here. So we had some reason why we thought they might come back up to square this drop, or maybe even this area up here. This is an example of getting just the basic important information down. And I gave my link for my picture down there. And I said in my notes, I was looking for a break hook and go, expecting potential bump from backed news. Now, this is just a sample. You should have a lot more than that. You know, I've been watching Bitcoin for a while, and it's getting stuck up in this area, and I'm seeing a lot of hype news. I've had a long-term plan, and this is getting near an area where it's on a long-term trend line I was watching. I have a particular feeling about this situation. Whatever it is, throw it in those notes. Once you've come up with this plan, then you come over to the ledger when you actually make the trade. That's when you're going to enter how much you took on your position size, what the USD value is. If it's a USD position, these two would be the same. and what your target is and what your expected percentage is. This sample is designed for someone who just needs one simple target, one entry, a really simple setup to get your ideas going. I even put 2 and 3 targets in there, but really this should be a simple setup. And this template down here is so you can take this and duplicate the sheet. And when you double click, you could say, you know, maybe I'm taking an FUSD trade. And now I can edit on this page. When it's done, I come back and make a new entry. Every single time I make a trade, I'm going to make a new page, document why, do my homework before I can actually click the button and log into my ledger. This is one way you can hold yourself responsible for being a good business owner, for tracking your expenses. Losses are expenses, gains are profits. You need to track your profits and losses just like any business. That's example 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for example 2. Example 2 is slightly different. Example 2 does not have a main ledger. Duffy says your buy at 23.25 and target at 13,000 is for your 23. That was the value of my position, Duffy. That was the value of a quarter Bitcoin at my entry of 9,300. So it wasn't a buy at 2,300. This was just for me to track the value of my position size on my entry. That way, when I come back to maybe do my taxes or to look at how much percentage that USD was of my total USD capital, I have the USD value of when I open that trade saved. So just want to clarify that. So going back to this second journal example, this journal is set up a little bit differently. There's no master ledger. Instead, we've got a trade template that we would duplicate for every single trade we want to make. So if we wanted to make a Bitcoin USD trade, we'd have a page for that. And instead of having a running, on this first example, I have a running ledger of all my trades on one page, different types of trades, different pairs. This one, you would have an action log for each move you make just on that one trade. This separates your trades out into single pages that have all of the data for that trade. So this is a different approach to completing the same goal of having a trade plan and journal that keeps track of it all for you in one place. I don't think Bizarro is here tonight, Duffy. So this plan has a little more complicated parts to it because not only do you have your trading pair, so maybe this is Bitcoin USD, I could go short or long. So let's say I'm going to go short on this plan. Now you would have to have an exchange to do it. Okay, but you could, there's a spot for it on this chart. Let's say you were going to enter at, when I opened my trading view, it was 9,400. The percentage to your buy. Now that could be if you wanted to have a scaled entry. So those of you that are getting a little more advanced that might be in the source code, you might want to have some kind of laddered entry system where you're scaling in, say, 33% per entry. And I can kind of do that if I want to make it a little cleaner. So there's my percentages. So I'm going to enter 33% at 9,400, 33% at 9,500, 33% at 9,600. Well, as those entry targets get hit, I would come down here and I would say entry 1 hit. I'm going to buy, let's say, just for sake of argument, I had 1 whole Bitcoin to buy. Oops, sorry, this is literally just buy or sell, just so I know. So if I'm short, I'm going to sell. Let's say it's a 0.33 Bitcoin. And I'm not going to log gain or loss until I exit. Amount would be the amount of my gain or my loss. And I would put, I'm going to turn bold off over here, entered. And you're going to have to get familiar with just navigating whatever your journal medium is, whether it's notes that you write down, whether it's an Excel sheet, a Word document, some kind of a planning journal that you've adapted. You have to get used to whatever the methods are for you to make it the way you want it to look. So I entered on E1, my first entry. We've got a global crisis affecting all markets. Feeling bearish generally, a lot of hype about recent trend line approach. You know, I'm just thinking of general notes I could be putting into this. I could put top of flag boundary at E3. Now let's say I get this in. They make it to my second entry, so maybe I get my second one. And it's easy if you kind of just copy and paste and edit it slightly if you need to. Okay. And maybe because it happened really fast, maybe I did it around the same time, so it's going to be easy here. I might even want to put a date there. And I just kind of want everybody to see what this process looks like of going through as I'm making decisions. This is a fluid process. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It just has to look good and make sense to you. So let's say this happened, this would have been near the end of February, 2/27/20. Let's say this happened a day after, just for our experiment purposes here. Now, let's say that entry 3 never got hit. I might do something for me. I'm a very visual person. I might say, as these entries get hit, I'm going to put green on there to know I made it in. So I made it into my 2 entries here, so I'm happy it's green, but I never quite make it here. Maybe I leave it yellow until it gets actually picked up, and if it doesn't get picked up and the market turns, it goes to red. That lets me know just from looking at it. I got 2/3 of my position in on this log. I got 1/3 that didn't make it. Now I had better have my stop loss in place, and let's say however I set this up that 10,500 was going to be my stop loss. Remember, this is short, so my stop loss in this case will be above my entry. My target 1 was maybe somewhere like 7,000, and I plan to sell half because I've learned that for me personally, and I already see that I'm going to want to adjust these decimals. Me personally, I might decide that I want to take 50% of my position off at my first target. That's a pretty good little drop there from 9,400 to 7 grand. So we'll take 50% off. My next target, let's say, is going to be 6,000. I'll take 25% off. And if I get to my very bottom of 5,000, I'll take, let's say 10% off. Okay, so that's going to leave a little bit behind, and there's nothing wrong with that. If it's short, I might decide to just close it out all the way. But if it was long, I might want to leave some on for longer. And then I'm going to put notes in general. Set up a short based on swing high reaching the top boundary of the descending channel. Feeling bearish due to world situation. Something like that. And for those of you that know how to use Excel, you can put wrapping on so it's all easily visible there. This is an example of what the process of going through a trade plan, documenting it in a journal, writing down notes and reasons for it looks like. This is not the end all be all. I'll say it again. You don't have to do it this way. This is just one way for you to see an example. And the benefit of this little sheet here is it also has that position sizing calculator that I used in my other lessons. It has the basic one here for your USD trades, and it has the Bitcoin trade one here that tells you your position size. The only difference is USD here and Bitcoin here, but this is an exact copy of those other position sizes. Duffy says that's the opposite way of getting out on going long. Exactly. So it doesn't matter exactly what your notes look like as long as they are meaningful to you and you're able to accomplish the goal of looking at what you did, why you did it, what reasons you had for doing it, and then coming back to see, did it work or not? If it worked, great. How could I have made it better? How could I have pushed that further? Should I have left a little bit more on? Should I have taken less off in the beginning? And if I try that, I better document that I'm trying that on the next trade because of this previous experience. There is no, there's no excuse for not going through this process other than you think that you don't need to take the time to put in the work needed to treat your trading as a business. And if that's how you feel, then you are not taking total responsibility for your results. Think about that for a second. In order to take full and total responsibility for the results of your trading, you must put forth your best effort in documenting your trades, documenting your emotions, documenting your behaviors, and then analyzing how you can get better at all three of those. If you're not doing it, what you're creating instead of measurable and developable results is instead you're creating excuses. So do you want to create the results that you're trying to achieve by steadily improving your results over time? Or do you want to create more excuses for yourself? Well, you know, I entered that trade, but I knew it was going to go here. Didn't quite get there. I had an idea of where I wanted to go, but I can't remember exactly why I hopped into that trade. I know when I go into Coinbase, I can see that 2 months ago, I hopped in there and it was probably a chart I saw in Discord. Somebody else had a good idea. I liked it. So I took a position. Well, when that doesn't work, how are you going to improve from it? How are you going to get better if you have nothing to fall back on, to look at, to examine what process you went through to get into that position in the first place? Your trading is your business. Your business is only as effective as your ability to monitor the results you get based on the work you put in, so that you can improve consistently over time. And the only way that your business will work for you is if your business is set up based on your own strengths and weaknesses. If you are very bad at keeping track of details like this, if you're the person who says, I really hate looking at plans and I really hate writing down all these notes and I just want to trade, to me, it is doubly important that you put the time in to document your results, more so than someone that enjoys this process. When you identify a weakness in yourself, if you turn away from that weakness and you go try and act like it's not there and do something else, you're never going to get better. That weakness is your own worst enemy, and you have to attack it head on. And the way you attack it is by doubling down on your own development in that area. Mark says FAIL stands for first attempt of initial learning. Absolutely. When I taught at a school, whether it was grade kindergarten or 12th grade, and I've taught every grade in between and adults, I took the word mistake out of the classroom. You can't take it out of your journal because it holds you responsible. But every single mistake is an opportunity. And you either take advantage of that opportunity by going through this process and getting better, or you waste that opportunity and throw it in the trash and keep beating your head over the same dang problem because you didn't bother to identify it and you didn't fix it. Don't be an insane trader. Don't do the same thing over and over and expect different results, because those results are more often than not going to be losses in trading, in just as much as it is in life. That's right, Stephen. Mark, journaling makes you accountable for your actions and helps you assess your reasoning. If you want to do better, you have to be honest. The only way you can be honest is with accurate records and confronting them when things don't work, not with judgment. I go back to this beginning lesson. You don't judge what you get in your journal. We're not here to talk about, oh, gee, I'm so dumb because I made that move. It might benefit you just because it feels good, but judgments don't make you better. Observing your records and recording your observations does. That's what your job is as a trader when it comes to journaling. I'm going to pass it back to Scott. That's all I got for tonight on this subject. This lesson is going to go into the foundations course, along with a few more that you guys are going to see pop in a little bit. If you have any questions, reach out in Discord, reach out in Telegram. We can talk about this more. If you have your own examples you want to share, feel free to drop them in either the foundations or source code chat channels. Don't drop them in the public channels unless it's something you did yourself. I cannot stress enough that you have to make a journal that you like, that works for you. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The only wrong way to do this is not to do it.